Good evening, all. It's Tuesday, March 19th, 2024, 6 p.m. Ordinance Committee meeting. I call this meeting to order. Roll call.
Councilman Becker,
Here.
Councilman Jekyll,
Here.
President Johnson.
Here. Item 3, new business, review and possible recommendation to the city council relating to ordinance amending section 22-261 relating to direct sellers. Ms. Eber.
Thank you. This has been a couple years since we reviewed this ordinance, but I think it's about time we bring it forward as it is quite popular. So direct sellers, door to door, this allows for those to go door to door residentially, not for businesses. We don't have a permit for those to go door to door for businesses. Couple of areas that I want to look at that we're looking to revise today. The first on page 2, the license fee. If the council recalls, a couple years ago, we started taking specific fees out of the ordinance and putting them in the fee resolution. So this allows them to be reviewed annually by council and established whether they're changed or not. This just kind of goes along with the protocol of what we've done for others. So the section here, we're just recommending that we remove the fee in here. It also obviously allows us to adjust it when needed. So the fee for each license shall be set by resolution and adopted by the city council is the wording that we're looking for. The fee resolution is reviewed annually with the budget process. Next, section G talks about license revocation. As much as we don't want to see a license revoked, sometimes it does happen. We have a couple sections in here where it talks about things that are prohibited as far as certain hours, certain aggressive tactics. We did have had the occasion where we did have to revoke some licenses in the past. Right now it calls for the chief of police, but this way changing it to allow the city manager or designee just kind of opens it up should the fact that if the chief is unavailable, or in other words, if the manager is also unavailable, that the designee can do that. A couple years ago when it happened, I was on vacation and it was coordinated between the chief and Deputy Tome at the time, and that was fine. But this just allows oversight for the city manager. Does anyone have any questions on that? I think the fee part was pretty.
No, I got
standard.
great belief in your powers and your thoughts that handing you some extra power is cool.
Well, it'd be city manager, but yeah. But she could say, yes, Michelle, you have the authority, do what you gotta do.
You guys make good decisions. To not move that path would be silly.
Okay, the next section talks about licenses per business, and this is something that we can probably talk a little bit about if the council has any concern on this. So right now, we do not have a maximum number per business per year, okay? So if Mr. Brown's window washing came through and he had 50 employees and he wanted all 50 to have these permits, there's nothing stopping them from applying for them. And while that's not bad for their business, it's also a lot of permits and a lot of work that we have to do. And I can imagine it's hard to keep track of 50 individuals when they're around the city in different locations. Last year we had a company from California come out, and I think they applied for at least 15 different permits. And we did actually have a lot of problems. They did do a lot of violations and we ended up revoking those. A lot of complaints had come through as far as the police department and calling City Hall. So we were kind of looking at this. And while we didn't have a max, we didn't think that there was a big reason to put it on there, except that it's more control on our end for this. I checked with other municipalities in the county and no one else has a maximum, but they all agree that it's a good idea. We currently have Everlight Solar out of Monona. I think they have 12 permits issued to sellers that are door to door. I know it was kind of cyclical. They were in the city for a few weeks. We did have a couple complaints on them, so we did give them one warning, and I haven't heard or seen. So I'm not sure if it's certain times of the year that they come out and they all come to one city and they kind of hit all the streets and all the doors that they want, and then they disperse to somewhere else. But I think this is something that I'm open the council wants to discuss. 10 more or less, is it necessary?
I believe 10 is a very healthy number. I mean, we're not that big of a city.
Mhm.
To put 10 people in the city, that's a lot of people just going door to door.
Mhm.
Is there a recommended from You, a number?
But this is what Manager Houseman and I kind of discussed. You know, we didn't want it limiting that you could only have three, but you know, if we look at it and you look at the city by broken up by wards, you know, as we're growing, we have a few more wards, but if you were to separate based on wards, you're looking 9 or 10 people. And that's just a thought that if you know, break up the city by an area or something.
Yeah, I think 10 is fine. It's more than enough. I know with that company you just mentioned, I didn't receive any personal complaints, but I did see on Facebook, there were some comments about, you know, again, some aggressive tactics and not listening when told to leave right away,
Yep.
that kind of thing. I just think more and more this type of selling's frankly going by the wayside. I think it's really falling
It
off.
seems like it, but we've had a lot of permits issued in the last year or two, so.
Yes.
I think it's
So.
one of them that's always gonna be in spurts when there's a new, you know, right now, solar's a big thing. So yeah, you're gonna have all the solar businesses or
Mhm.
that, but
And at the limit that we had now, you had a few times where you had to say enough, stop, you're revoked.
Or just to remind them of what the,
So
and
that-
everyone's permit says what practice is prohibited, so it's
again,
on them.
backing it off to 10 and making sure that if 10 doesn't do it, then we can make it 8. I mean, whatever, you know, come back and revisit this if we're still having issues that said 10's too many.
Mhm.
If I can backtrack for a second on the fee, I realize that's set on the schedule and we
Mhm.
typically review that on an annual basis. The 25, I'm wondering if we could visit that in the future. Like, I'm wondering, is that anything that's set by state statute or is that just a?
Nope, it's set by us locally.
Okay.
And as we've already issued some permits this year for $25, we hesitate increasing it mid-year.
Sure.
But it is something that we're gonna look at, and we have a recommendation that we'll bring to the council in the fall. You know, with
Okay.
The budget.
That sounds like a good,
Yep.
good plan.
I had another thought to the maximum, in referencing Councilman Becker, you talked about you saw complaints online. The most recent concerns we had was there was a police call, and then I received an email. So while we heard and saw comments online, we did not take those to be the prohibited practices that we acted on,
Okay.
so.
there's
Because,
gotta be actual complaints made directly
yeah,
to.
and it was.
city staff.
Yep, and it was clear and legit, and the 2 complaints we had, that they were upsetting enough that we thought, okay, now's the time, so. and-
Yeah, no, I'm glad over the years we've kind of taken a stricter stance on this type of activity. I recall a few years ago, we had a horrible interaction with a company that you know, I had complaints, people calling me at 7:30
Yeah.
the next day
Yeah.
upset, and I'm glad we're taking this,
Good.
formalizing it a little bit more.
The final point to look at, under the prohibited practices, the current ordinance allows for, no calling after 8 p.m. or before 9 a.m. We're kind of looking and asking the council to consider changing that to 7 p.m. So obviously we're coming into summer right now, where days a little bit longer, but when we did have the nicer weather in November, December, January, it's pretty dark at those times. And you're not normally get a knock on your door at 7 o'clock at night, but the fact that it was nicer weather, that's when some of the concerns we had, people were, you know, it's evening, it's almost 7, 8 o'clock at night and someone's knocking on my door and it's dark outside and they can't easily identify that person. So we're wondering if, council consider changing that to 7 p.m. So they can go door to door from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Not sure if there's any thoughts on that.
I agree. People coming to your door at that hour of the night in the dark, it's family time. It's not time to be bothered by a traveling salesman.
Mhm.
I'm fine with the change.
Okay. That was all we had within the ordinance that we wanted to discuss, and look for any comments, so.
And to move it to the next level, do we need a motion?
Yep, it could be a motion to direct staff to, draft the ordinance and it'll be presented at a future city council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 4, discussion of off-street parking standards. This is something I requested from Ms. Hausman. I'm not looking for, let's rewrite the zoning code. I'm not looking for undoing stuff that was hard work done by Mr. Drager and dealing with some of the parking issues that we had. I do have a couple of issues that I think have gone a little bit past what we should do. They're tiny. I think that if we discuss them, you might agree with me. That's all I'm looking for is a discussion and whether or not we should move it forward to another meeting where we've had time to think it over and then have a bigger discussion of it. The two issues that I'm looking at are the fact that citizens cannot park on their front yard and put a for sale sign on their car. I've never known a town, I've never been in this town where that wasn't legal, but it is now not legal. I don't think that I'm a wagering man, and I bet more than half of the city would be unaware that they couldn't do that. We've always been able to do that. It's a small town. We ought to be able to find some way, whether it's a 1 month permit or something, where the person who wants to sell their family member's car on their front yard could do that. It defeats me to think that's not something we could organize without destroying the rules that we've got in place to keep certain other situations from continuing.
I guess I'm wondering if there's something specific that's motivating that. I haven't had anybody ever reach out to me one way or the other about,
I have had two,
and they want to sell a car on their front lawn.
yeah, and they were told by the police department to get it off or be ticketed.
Did they get a warning or did they get a ticket?
Verbal warning to my knowledge.
If somebody is cited for that, what's the process?
Well, they wouldn't be cited right away. They'd be giving a warning to get it off.
Okay,
And then typically the officer would follow back up again. And then they might get a citation, but I've never prosecuted one that they've ever even written one.
okay.
So I think if you're selling a car, I mean, you're gonna have at least 30 days to get rid of the car. Without.
Okay.
any
So the
penalty.
notice is 30 days.
Yeah.
Is what
Okay.
Attorney Westrick is saying. So you get a 30-day notice if the police would find a car on the front lawn.
And I think we should move it to a 30-day permit. Whether we come up and say you can't do that, go down to City Hall, get a permit, you'll have 30 days to have it there and then you need to move it. We don't lose the ability to get it off the lawn, but we do gain the ability to say you agreed to 30 days, get off.
And is this a registered, permitted, one-time deal? Because there's vehicles in town that, and this I have come upon, where people shift them around the yard so as to not get a ticket, and then they would register them once the police give them a warning. So would this be like a one-time permit that they can sell this car for 30 days only or something?
I could be on board with that, just the opportunity to do it.
I'm still not getting, why do they have to put it on their lawn? Couldn't they put it in their driveway with a for sale sign or put it even parked on the curb with a for sale sign?
In their driveway, how many double wide driveways do we have? Do we have single wide driveways? Where do you put it? At the other end by your garage, or do you put it on the end where it can be seen? Do you have to move it every time you do it? To me, when I ran for council, I had, shall we say, campaign promises. I didn't promise world peace. I didn't promise to build up the military. But I did promise that if I got elected, I would try and protect small town ambiance. This to me is protecting small town ambiance. This isn't something that's necessary by us.
My biggest thing, I could see it being abused to an extent. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a right to park a vehicle on your lawn to sell it. I think we need to have a restriction to do it if you're going to. Otherwise, people might start trying to turn their little residential lots into a car dealership. If you get the right person. I've seen that out in the country where one lot might have throughout the year 4 or 5 cars parked out for sale. You know, and I could see some streets, you know, go up Sherman Avenue, there's a lot of houses that don't have or a driveway right off of the main street that would maybe want to park something out there, you know, where it's actually visible. But I do think, you know, if we're gonna do it, we need to look at, you know, a restriction as to how many a year you could have out there to sell and a time frame. Otherwise, somebody might use it as saying, hey, our car is for sale, but we got astronomical price on it. So we're not gonna sell it, we're just parking it there to store it.
And to me, we're still living in a small town community where if I was selling something, it'd be on Facebook, be on Marketplace. You know what? There's a lot of people older than me that live in this town that might say, this is my grandson's car. He's gone to college. I need to sell it. I want to put it in the front yard. I think a permit that says we'll give you so many days to attempt that. You'll have, if you haven't sold in 30 days, maybe it's not that good a deal and you're not gonna. But to tell them they can't, I'm opposed to that.
I guess I just, you can talk about small town charm. I mean, and yeah, I want to have small town charm too. That's why I don't live in Milwaukee or Madison. I can drive to those places if I want to go visit those types of amenities. But at the same time, I think Fort Atkinson has always been a city where people pride themselves on keeping up good appearances of their properties. And that's across the spectrum. That's regardless of backgrounds and things like that. And I don't have a feeling a lot of people are pining to see used autos for sale on people's lawns. I think you just mentioned Facebook Marketplace. I sell stuff on Facebook all the time. It works. Most people are on social media these days. I think it's a very easy outlet to use. At the same time, people, if they have a car or something they want to sell, there are plenty of private commercial properties where I've seen people will get permission to park their car out in that parking lot, and that's another way to sell a car. I'm not getting this impetus to put cars on lawns where they can also, you know, potentially leak oil or other things, which can become an environmental issue. I'm not getting this one.
Well, I'm sorry that you don't. I feel very strongly that people have the right to, they pay the taxes on the property, they own the property, they upkeep the property. And as you said, we've had a long history of people taking pride in their property and doing it. We don't have some massive used car industry going out on front lawns. To just simply make it legal for a few days doesn't strike me as out of the question.
Yeah, I mean, few days might be one thing. I still not quite getting the need, but I mentioned I haven't had anybody personally ask me or say they would like to be able to sell a car on their lawn. I have had many instances where people have complained about the appearance of a neighbor who maybe has a car or junk or things in their front property. There's a certain house we've all heard about in the past in a certain neighborhood where we've gotten many complaints over the years because it doesn't look good. And I just think a lot of people don't necessarily want to see a car for sale across the street and on somebody's grass. I think a lot of people don't want to see that.
Well, as my thought was to get this conversation started. If there was enough support to move it a little further and have the whole council talk about it, I'd love it. If there's not, there's not. But this isn't, I win. This is a conversation I wanted to have and see what other people felt, what I think. I think that I'm a small town and I would take great offense. I would have more offense that I couldn't put a car in my yard like that for a few days than I would being told it's okay. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's not a major deal. We haven't had used car lots erupt all over town over, I know, older than me. That it's going to suddenly happen because we allow them to do it for a few days. I don't see that happening. At which point in time, if it did, we could rewrite it and say, hey, nope, this isn't working.
No, I have no problem discussing any idea. I just I think we owe it to our community to maintain some standards of what we want properties to look like. And to me, I think that's one of them.
Okay, and I think that we owe to the people. If I moved into a gated community and they had a rule that I couldn't do it, I get it, but I moved in there and signed up for it.
Sure.
Nobody in town, except those who live in such rural areas with those kind of rules, signed up for this kind of a gated community process. They should be able to just say, okay, you own the property, you pay the taxes on the property. If you keep it neat and orderly, we'll give you so many days to attempt it. I'm not saying that we give them 30 attempts every year. We give them 1 or 2, and be done with it.
Yeah.
Has staff looked at any other communities as to ideas that they have or haven't had with this topic, or?
No, we have not. I think we were waiting to get some feedback from the ordinance committee. We didn't want to put a lot of work into something that was, may or may not go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So I think, every community that I've worked at has not permitted cars to be parked on the front lawn. Every city
Okay.
and village that I've worked for does not permit this. As Attorney Westrick indicated, he's never prosecuted a ticket for it, so there's never been a ticket challenged, at least. We can't say that there hasn't been one written, I guess, right?
Not one that has come to a pretrial that I've ever seen.
So not one that's ever come to a pretrial. So if people are putting cars for sale or have been in the past several years, maybe that 30 days is enough for them to get a notice from the police department, probably not on the first day, right? Because nobody's that good.
No.
And
A lot of
then,
neighbors will turn an eye for a couple days
right,
until it becomes a problem.
yeah. And so, and so maybe that's, what I want to, I guess, avoid just administratively is creating another process, another permit process. Now that we have to administer and then chase down and then organize and keep track of, and then, continue on that realm. So if there's not, it seems to be a solution without a problem. But that is just my perspective from the administrative side of things, as far as, having a permit process.
Yeah, and I mean, it's another thing for the police to enforce, and we don't have that large of a police force either. I guess I'm curious, we've got Jed here. I mean, is this something you've run into in your job duties? Is this something that has become a concern, or that you've had to, recommend anybody for a citation on?
He does that every time. I have not had to recommend anybody for citation, but I have had several instances where a citizen has contacted me to complain about parking in the front yard. I'm not going to list those properties, but some come to mind that are habitual
Yeah.
offenders of it that repeatedly do it. Personally, I have not gotten a call from a citizen about wanting to sell their vehicle. Attorney Westrick is right. There is a 30-day notice that you're given if you're in violation of that before any citation would be. And you could give a citation after that 30 days, but on a normal basis, they are given a second warning, a little bit shorter probably to get them moving on it. But as far as numbers, mine correlate with each other. I'm going to know about the same property from both perspectives just because of my involvement with it. As far as, complaints versus people complaining about not being able to do it. I have had contact with some citizens, 2, maybe 3, wondering about being able to park on the front yard. Usually that situation comes up during a snow emergency. The policy, we don't really have a policy for that, but it's really left to discretion on that. And during a snow emergency, as far as I understand, that can be overlooked, but I hesitate to make a change to that. As we all know, people will try to abuse it if they can.
Is there a definitive answer that says only cars can't be put on the front yard for sale? Can you put your kid's bicycle on the front yard for sale? Can you have a rummage sale that's on your front yard? What can you sell from your front yard that doesn't include the same issues that we're talking about?
Well, as far as vehicles go, this would pertain to vehicles alone, so, or recreational trailers and things along those matters. Yard sales and things like that don't fall into this category. I do think I should point out that the no parking in the front yard has been in, since our previous ordinances as well. Chapter 15 from 2002, it was in there as well. If enforcement or people paying more attention to it has changed, that is possibility, but it has been an ordinance for at least that duration.
I'm sorry, 2002?
2002. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll make sure.
I guess
What?
that, kind of, to me, I would say kind of leave it as it is, with the, you park it out there, you get your warning, you got your 30 days to do it. I'm not encouraging anyone to do it, but I don't want to create an extra steps for city or the police department or officials to have to worry about. I'm all for, being able to sell your vehicle and stuff on your own property, but
I guess that's where I leave things as they are. I'm just, think.
I know we need to give Ms. Hausman a direction that we feel, and I feel that the direction that is coming forth is to leave it as it is.
on that portion.
I wish it was different, but that's where it'll be. We will send a directive that we're gonna leave it as it is.
One thing I would like to bring up though, in idea with the snow emergency situations, as Jed said, I did have a few people reach out last year or make comments with snow emergencies, and you're not allowed to park on your lawn. If we could maybe put a clause in the ordinance that during an effective issued snow emergency, that you can park on there for that duration of time, but it does need to be removed.
You take my thunder, because that was my second issue.
Okay,
On
sorry.
snow emergency, the idea that you can't be on either side, I get that. You gotta be on one side or the other during normal winter hours so they can plow. During a snow emergency, you need to get off the road. But the inconvenience of telling you you're gonna park 2 miles away, walk in a foot of snow to get to your car to go to work, and then hope it starts. If you can get it into your driveway, even if that means one wheel on the grass for a 24-hour period, and we don't have to change the law. We just have to decide that's not something we're gonna pick on somebody for. But in 24 hours, they need to get off. When the snow emergency is over, it's over.
When
I
the
think
city is,
practically speaking, though, that's the same thing. Chairman,
Get
that,
30 days.
yeah, that they would have time, and I've never prosecuted a ticket for that either, because in reality, I think the police, by the time they were to get there and get the letter, I mean, it's a non-issue and the car's gone. So I'm not saying that people should do that, but I'm saying that people certainly do that. And it hasn't been an issue because they get it off like the next day or something.
Have the police been citing people for like having their car, even part of their car, like you suggested, on their lawn during a snow emergency?
They have, I've never seen a ticket, so I'm guessing they haven't, because people would be unhappy. So then they'd come to see me, but I haven't had one.
Okay.
So like I said, I'm guessing the enforcement officer in the, because typically the on patrol officer is not gonna write that, right? They're gonna have like the ordinance enforcement. They have the college student who kind of,
Code enforcement.
court enforcement. And they're not gonna have time, or they're not gonna be fast enough to catch that person within, the snow emergency.
Well,
Because they have the car off,
that brings up another thing, I think we have in the past, so on at least some other discussions, and we've leaned towards giving the police some measure of discretion, there's a difference, I think, between, there's this heavy snowfall and somebody has their car partially on their lawn, 'cause maybe they have a 3-car household and there wasn't quite enough room. I can't imagine our police citing for something like that. I think if somebody, like, again, a certain property I'm thinking of where they habitually block the sidewalk or park on the lawn, that's probably an instance where they're probably gonna lean towards issuing a citation. I think I personally trust our police officers that they're gonna use that discretion. Certainly if we started hearing about it as council members, that this was becoming a chronic problem, and I would welcome looking at it at that point, but I'm not quite seeing the impetus on this one again.
My only spot was, like I said, with that, but again, yeah, like Westrick said, the notice and time period
Well,
doesn't
I
align,
can-
right?
I can accept the path that we appear to be on, but I just want to point out, so if we revisit that, just as our city attorney said, if we dealt with this and we pushed it, people would not be happy that they couldn't do that. And that's not what my purpose is. I'm not here to make people unhappy or put my thumb on somebody. I have great empathy for people who have a need to survive, need to get to live their lives out here. And if we tell them, you got a 24-hour period, you got to go park a couple of miles from here, that's not the idea in my head.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to force anybody to park 2 miles away either. And if that situation was coming up, I'd be happy to look at it. I think like that's one again where we kind of give, in my view, the police that
Discretion.
that it's in the code, it gives them a tool. If they have to use it, they'll use it, but it doesn't seem like we're hearing that they've really been needing to cite people for that.
Okay, I may have let my empathy for that get in my way. I get the feeling where we're at. I would be very happy we've never revisit this, but I would be glad to revisit it if it appears to be becoming an issue.
Yeah, I'd be on board with that.
So again, another motion to leave it as it is, I would assume, is it correct, gentlemen?
No,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
just
yeah.
discussion, so we'll just,
The general direction that we give is to leave it as it is.
that works.
Any other discussion? Item 5, adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.